hope we're all doing okay and having a good week. It's been rainier than it has been recently, so kind of stuck inside a little bit more than we were before, but never mind, always make the best of it. So I hope you're doing well and enjoying the weekly challenges, and thank you for sending in your emails. It's really lovely to see. Right, so we'll carry on with the next part of our book, A Wrinkle in Time. So we're just about to start chapter 7, The Man with Red Eyes. So as we know, children have arrived on a planet and they've been looking around and they find it really strange because the houses and the children and the people all seem to be exactly the same, almost robotic. And they're desperately trying to find Meg's and Charles' father, but they don't quite know where he is. Okay, so we left it where Charles Wallace was saying how unusual it was that he couldn't see inside people's minds and souls and he couldn't quite read them. Okay, so we're going to start chapter 7, The Man with the Red Eyes. We knew we were going to be in danger, Charles Wallace said. Mrs. Watsit told us that. Yes, and she told us it was going to be worse for you than for Meg and me, and that you must be careful. You must stay right here with Meg, old sport, and let me go in and case the joint and then report to you. Case the joint means to go in and sort of have a look around first. No, Charles Wallace said firmly. She told us to stay together. She told us not to go off by ourselves. She told you not to go off by yourself. I'm the eldest and I should go in first. No, Meg's voice was flat. Charles is right, Cal. We have to stay together. Suppose you didn't come out and we had to go in after you. Come on, let's go. Hold hands if you don't mind. Holding hands, they crossed the square. The huge central intelligence building had only one door, but it was an enormous one, at least 2 stories high and wider than a room made of a dull bronze-like material. Do we just knock? Meg giggled. Calvin studied the door. There isn't any handle or knob or latch or anything. Maybe there's another way to get in. Let's try knocking anyhow, Charles said. He raised his hand, but before he touched the door, it slid up from the top and to each side, splitting into 3 sections. That had been completely invisible for a moment before. The children, startled children, looked into a grey entrance hall of dull, greeny marble. Marble benches lined 3 of the walls, and people were sitting there like statues. The green of the marble reflecting on their faces made them look bilious. That means really big and bulbous and round. They turned their heads as the door opened, saw the children, and looked away again. Come on, Charles said, still holding hands. They stepped in. As they crossed the threshold, the door shut silently behind them. Meg looked at Calvin and Charles, and they, like the waiting people, were a sickly green. The children went up to the blank 4th wall. It seemed unsubstantial, as though one might almost be able to walk through it. Charles put out his hand. It's solid and icy cold. Calvin touched it too. Ugh. Meg's left hand was held by Charles and her right hand by Calvin, and she had no desire to let go of either of them to touch the wall. Let's ask someone something. Charles led them over to one of the benches. Could you tell us what the procedure around here is? He asked one of the men. The men all wore nondescript business suits. That means there's no description, there's no detail about them, they're quite plain. And though their features were as different from one from the other as the features of men on earth, there was also a sameness to them. Like the sameness of people riding in a subway, Meg thought. Only on a subway, every once in a while, there's somebody different, and here there isn't. The man looked at the children warily. The procedure for what? How do we see whoever's in authority? Charles asked. Well, you present your papers to the A machine. You ought to know that, the man said severely. Where's the A machine? Calvin said. The man pointed to the blank wall. But there isn't a door or anything, Calvin said. How do we get in? You put your S paper in the B slot, the man said. Why are you asking me these stupid questions? Do you think I don't know the answers? You better not play any games around here or you'll have to go through that process machine again. And you don't want to do that. We're strangers here, Calvin said. That's why we don't know things. Please tell us, sir. Who are you and what do you do? I run a number 1 spelling machine on the 2nd grade level. But what are you doing here now? Charles Wallace asked. Well, I'm here to report that one of my letters is jamming, and until it can be properly oiled by an F-grade oiler, there is a danger of jammed minds. Strawberry jam or raspberry? Charles Wallace murmured. Calvin looked down at Charles and shook his head warningly. And Charles Wallace is obviously trying to have a little bit of a joke, and Calvin is trying to warn him not to do that. Meg gave the little boy's hand a slight, understanding pressure. Charles Wallace, she was quite sure, was not trying to be rude or funny. It was his way of whistling in the dark. The man looked at Charles sharply. I think I shall have to report you. I'm fond of children due to the nature of my work, and I don't like to get them into trouble, but rather than run the risk myself of Reaper's processing, I must report you. Maybe that's a good idea, Charles said. Who do you report us to? To whom do I report you to? Well, to whom then? I'm not on the 2nd grade level yet. I wish he wouldn't act so sure of himself, Meg thought, looking anxiously at Charles and holding his hand more and more tightly until he wriggled his fingers in protest. That's what Mrs. Watson said he had to watch, being proud. Don't, please don't, she thought, hard at Charles Wallace. She wondered if Calvin realised that a lot of the arrogance was bravado. Bravado means when you're trying to show that you're really brave, and probably you're not. The man stood up, moving jerkily as though he had been sitting for a long time. I hope he isn't too hard on you, he murmured, as he led the children toward the empty 4th wall. But I've been repossessed once before, and it was more than enough, and I don't want to get sent to IT. I've never been sent to IT, and I can't risk ever having that happen. There was it again. What was this IT? What was this it? The man took from his pocket a folder filled with papers of every colour. He shuffled through them carefully, finally withdrawing one. I've had several reports to make lately. I shall have to ask for a requisition for more A21 cards. He took the card and put it against the wall. It slid through the marble as though it was being sucked in and disappeared. You may be detained for a few days, the man said, but I'm sure they won't be too hard on you because of your youth. Just relax, don't fight it, and it will all be much easier for you. He went back to his seat, leaving the children standing and staring at the blank wall. Suddenly, the wall was no longer there, and they were looking into an enormous room lined with machines. They were not unlike the great computing machines Meg had seen in her science books and that she knew her father sometimes worked with. Some did not seem to be in use, in other lights were flicking on and off. In one machine, a long tape was being eaten. In another series of dots and dashes were being punched. Several white-robed attendants were moving about tending the machines. If they saw the children, they gave no sign. Calvin muttered something. What? Meg asked him. There is nothing to fear except fear itself, Calvin said. I'm quoting, like Mrs. Who, Meg. I'm scared stiff. So am I. Meg held his hand more tightly. Come on. They stepped into the room with the machines. In spite of the enormous width of the room, it was even longer than it was wide. Perspective made the long rows of machines seem to almost meet. The children walked down the centre of the room, keeping as far from the machines as possible. Though I don't suppose they're radioactive or anything, Charles Wallace said, or that they'd be going to reach out and grab us and chew us up. After they'd walked for what seemed like miles, they could see the enormous room did have an end, and at the end there was something. Charles Wallace said suddenly, and his voice held panic, Don't let go of my hands. Hold me tight. He's trying to get at me. Who? Meg squeaked. I don't know, but he's trying to get into me. I can feel him. Oh, let's go back, Calvin started to pull away. No, Charles Wallace said. I have to go on. We have to make decisions, and we can't make them if they're based on fear. His voice sounded old and strange and remote. Meg, clasping his small hand tightly, could feel it sweating in hers. As they approached the end of the room, their steps slowed. Before them was a platform, and on the platform was a chair, and on the chair was a man. What there was about him that seemed to contain all the coldness and darkness they'd felt as they plunged through the black thing on their way to the planet. I've been waiting for you, my dears, the man said. His voice was kind and gentle, and not at all the cold and frightening voice Meg had expected. It took her a moment to realise that though the voice came from the man, he'd not opened his mouth or moved his lips at all, and that no real words had been spoken to fall upon her ears, but he'd somehow communicated directly into their brains. But how does this happen that there are three of you, the man asked. Charles Wallace spoke with harsh boldness, but Meg could feel him trembling. Oh, Calvin just came along for the ride. Oh, he did he? For a moment there was a sharpness to his voice that spoke inside their minds. Then it relaxed and became soothing again. Well, I hope that it's been a pleasant one so far. Oh, very educational, Charles Wallace said. Let Calvin speak for himself, the man ordered. Calvin growled, his lips tight, his body rigid. I've nothing to say. Meg stared at the man in horrified fascination. His eyes were bright and had a reddish glow, and above his head was a light, and it glowed in the same manner as the eyes, pulsing and throbbing in a steady rhythm. Charles Wallace shut his eyes tightly. Close your eyes, he said to Meg and Calvin. Don't look at the light, don't look at his eyes, he'll hypnotise you. Clever, aren't you? Focusing your eyes would of course help, the soothing voice went on, but there are other ways, my little man. Oh yes, there are other ways. If you try it on me, I shall kick you, Charles Wallace said. It was the first time Meg had ever heard Charles Wallace suggesting violence. Oh, will you indeed, my little man? The thought was tolerant, amused, but four men in dark smocks, like dark outfits, appeared and flanked the children, which means they came around them so they had no way of escape. Now, my dears, the words continued, I shall of course have no need of recourse to violence, but I thought perhaps it would save you pain if I showed you at once that it would do you no good to try and oppose me. You see, what you will soon realise is that there is no need to fight me. Not only is there no need, but you will not have the slightest desire to do so, for why should you wish to fight someone who is only here to save you pain and trouble? For you, as well as for the rest of the happy, useful people on this planet, I, in my own strength, am willing to assume all the pain, all the responsibility, all the burdens of thought and decision. We will make our own decisions, thank you, Charles Wallace said. But of course, and our decisions will be one, yours and mine. Don't you see how much better, how much easier it is that for you? Let me show you. Let us say the multiplication table together. This man is, in a way, kind of trying to hypnotise the children. And I don't know what you think, but to me it sounds like he's taken over all the minds of all the people on the planet. And that's why they're doing everything at the same time. He doesn't want people to make their own decisions. He doesn't want them to be different and unique, like we talked about when we did PSHE and how important it was to be unique and your own person. He doesn't want that. He wants to control everybody. He wants everyone to do the same thing. And he's trying to bring these children into thinking that way as well. No, Charles Wallace said. Together. Once one is one. Once two is two. Once three is three. Mary had a little lamb, Charles Wallace shouted. Its fleece was white as snow. So Charles Wallace is trying not to think of the times table like he asked him to. He's trying to think of something else. Once four is four. Once five is five. Once six is six. And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. 1 7 is 7. 1 8 is 8. 1 9 is 9. Peter, pumpkin eater, had a wife and couldn't keep her. Once 10 is 10. Once 11 is 11. Once 12 is 12. The number words pounded insistently against Meg's brain. They seemed to be boring their way into her skull. Twice 1 is 2. Twice 2 is 4. Twice 3 is 6. Calvin's voice came out in an angry shout. 70 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. This is something special that the Americans learn and chant from an early age. Both him and Wallace are trying to do things to take their mind off the counting and trying so hard not to join in because then they truly will be hypnotised by him. Twice 4 is 8. Twice 5 is 10. Twice 6 is 12. Father! Meg screamed. Father! The scream, half involuntary, jerked her mind back out of darkness. The words of the multiplication table seemed to break up into laughter. Splendid, splendid! You've passed your preliminary tests with flying colours. You didn't think we were as easy as all that, falling for that old stuff, did you? Charles Wallace demanded. Right. I'm going to leave it there for now. So he's obviously trying to take over their minds. He's trying to do something, but so far the children are proving that they're far cleverer than perhaps they thought. So far he's been very unsuccessful in doing that. Right. Well, I hope you have a really good rest of the week. Keep sending those emails. Let's see those weekly challenges. My weekly challenge of tapping out my favourite song I've just uploaded to the website, so do have a look at that weekly challenge page, and a few other people have put their favourite songs on as well, so have a little guess and see what they are. So stay happy, stay safe, and hopefully I'll speak to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.